it's very critical to look at the situation in which we are. So right now in this auditorium, we have seen how technology functions and what are the features that in a well-equipped auditorium can also face. So similarly, if we look around, even in the big cities of Pakistan, where we claim that we have good infrastructure in terms of utilizing these educational technologies, we still come across a lot of technology-related issues. So, one aspect is the physical or the infrastructural support for technology, but then the other side of it is how many of our teachers have access to these facilities in their own context where they are operating. And the third aspect is how well trained these teachers are with ever-changing technologies that are in front of them. And most of the times, these educational technologies are driven by big, huge, giant edtech companies. And the one of the common things that we come across is that we fall into trap of these well-portrayed educational tools that are in front of us, and we just pick them up and start using them without thinking what's the purpose. Am I replicating real teaching and learning that could have been possible in a much better way in-person settings? Am I enforcing or just forcefully using the technology? So these three critical aspects have made the use of technology very like contentious at times, and at times it's not serving the purpose. If we focus on improving the learning, or the core focus of the entire teaching and learning process is the learners must learn in a better way. So if we are looking at that claim, then only the use of technology is not the only solution. So we need to come to this point that for what purpose this technology tool will help the teacher to address the core purpose of learning. So that fundamental piece is compromised in all the various aspects that the teacher is handling.
Right. So this is very interesting. I was just wondering, while you were talking about these giant companies who have these big tech tools, are these like um, pharmaceutical companies where they ask you to have certain vitamins that you must have in order to stay healthy, stay alive?
Yeah, so it's a very good analogy, and I think this will help you to relate to what how, the dark side of technology as well. So there is a dark side. We must acknowledge that. So not everything is as bright as it is portrayed. So we need to. So that is the recent conversation that's happening in the literature is that we need to look at the other side of these technologies that are made so easily available at the beginning, but as soon as you start using them, then the technology companies get back to you and they start offering you various packages, right? So this is how they trap us into various different educational tools, the so-called tools which help us to improve learning. So sort of like we need to continue to question these tools. I was just reading. There's a book which talks about 25 years of these educational technologies, and they have, in the conclusion, they have strongly recommended that there are certain approaches that should be carefully taken while we adopt an educational tool. So the first thing they say is that we must carefully look at the tool. So that element of care, and that care should be centered towards the learner. So for the learner, we are choosing the tool. So we we must carefully choose whether it is serving the learner's need or is it just the serving the purpose of the edtech company. And then the next step they advised is to appropriately critique the tool. So all tools are there, but we need to see that what specific function it is offering. And the other aspect that I must say, so usually what we do as teachers, so I am primarily a science teacher educator. So in sciences, so there is good side of these technologies as well. So in impact of various scientific phenomena, otherwise in a classroom setting. So this is one right side, otherwise in a classroom setting. So this is one right side. Other things which are forcefully incorporated in the classroom setting, which would have been better done by a physical teacher doing in person, right? So this is the difference that we have to be mindful, and this critique is very important. That why we are using a certain tool, and that will help the teacher to mindfully choose that tool. Um, One thing that I want to emphasize that despite the value and use, rightful use of technological tools, so last month I was training a group of teacher trainers in Koita. And over there, despite being mindful of the access to technology, it was so difficult to even share the resources online with them because the internet access was so like weak over there. So for some time we could have access to internet. So all these things should be kept in mind that what is the context and what all can be done in that context. Otherwise, all these technologies could badly fail our entire uh, mindfully planned activity.
I think over here the key word is mindful. So, do you think our teachers have the expertise to be mindful while choosing these tools?
So most of the time they do look at these things, but as I said, in a day of a routine teacher, it's hardly any time when they can reflect and analyze their own actions and analyze the decisions that they are taking in terms of teaching and learning. So this requires a deliberate time for thinking about these decisions. So, in teaching and learning settings, it's very important that we sit down and take slow down for some time and have these discussions where we look at our practices and question our own selves that whether what we are practicing is actually helping our learners or not, because the core focus at the end of the day is the learners, right? So if learners needs are not fulfilled, whatever means and whatever tools we are using, it would not suffice.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask now, Dr. Mustafa. Sir, how is EdTech changing, you know, vocational trainings? How is it changing, by the way?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Samat, for invitation also, and I would like to congratulate all the organizers, and on the behalf of Sakyarabhi University, welcome you all. It's the second day of this wonderful conference. Okay, so before moving to your question, I would like to add a little bit to Dr. Tasneem, I think the thing which she had discussed. The tools are already available, especially specifically related to education, because we are from the from the rural context, so of this great province of Sindh. So I would like to add here that the tools and technologies are already available in the market. For us as a pedagogue, the major challenge is those pedagogies which we can use to teach by using those technological tools and teach to the students. So for me, when I was discussing with Dr. Sharik there, that currently this is the shift from Gen Y to Gen Alpha. This is not Gen Z to Gen Alpha, but we cannot somehow neglect this so-called revolution in the education and the technological advancements. But this is also one of the reality that there are several challenges in the field which we as a teachers and the teacher educators are facing, particularly related to that how sometimes because I used to teach the course of ICTs in education in BA and also in MPhil. So most of the time, student used to share with me that, sir, whenever we used to visit our schools, whatever you teach us, VR, AR, Internet of Things, but there is no even a digital slide there. So what we will do with that? So I think for us as a pedagogue, this is very important that we need to come up with those innovative teaching approaches, pedagogies, which can support and facilitate our teacher and educators and our pre-service and in-service teachers, that they can use those effectively and based on the minimum resources, minimum infrastructure, and keeping them in mind that how digital innovations and these things are also part of our society. So coming back to your question, Dr. Saiba. So you have talked about vocational education. This is also one of the area of my research interest, and also I'm a student of vocational education and technical education. So what I believe that what we need, for example, there is, I think, no doubt that in education 4.0 and education, maybe it is new for some of our audience, the term education 4.0 and education 5.0. Let me share a little bit about that. Education 4.0 is influenced from the revolution, which is the fourth revolution in the industry. And what we had to do that we had to re-engineer, realign our curriculum based on the needs of the industry and train our teachers according to that. So similarly for education 5.0, I think it is somehow we are in the process to introduce that. First we move to the dependency of the technology. And now in education 5.0, we realize that human importance is much more than the technology. And yes, and in education 5.0, that is human-centric approach. Now student, that the user or the teacher or the student is not not just a technology user. He have to lead as a decision maker, problem solver, and efficiently integrate technology to get maximum output from it. So see, previously when there was education 4.0, so some of the times in panel discussions and conferences, people used to ask that teachers are going to replace with robots, teachers are going to replace with artificial intelligence. But in 5.0, we are now coming back to the main thing, that we need those soft skills. The what I usually and also literature suggests that nowadays we need four major skills: the value set, knowledge set, and also the skill set, which is digital skill, which is also very important. But if we talk about the education, vocational education, so I think after COVID-19, there is a huge shift in vocational education at the COVID influence in terms of techno-pedagogy and techno-literacy and other skills and other approaches in different domains. It's also influenced vocational education. And particularly with that, what we had experienced that, for example, if we want to train our workforce, our students, our technicians about welding, so the most appropriate way of teaching that without any hazardous environment or the environmental factor, the virtual reality or augmented reality was excellent in terms of in vocational education. Also simulation based education and simulation tools, they were so much like helpful for students. They are working in vocational settings. Recently, I was part of one of the project working with one of my university, and we have a professor, Dr. Sarala from that UTHM. We were working on one of the World Bank's project on vocational education training. So what we had concluded from that, that more than I think 30% from the traditional approach, when we teach and train our workforce through virtual reality applications, they performed better. And VR was very like progressive in terms of vocational education. And recently, we at Sakaraya University, we are also working on virtual reality based education. We have e-modules on VR to train our students to develop the digital courseware to teach in the school. So that is somehow from my experience that the virtual reality, augmented reality, simulation tools, they are very progressive in vocational education technology.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mushtaba. What's coming to my mind is that you talked about 4 naught and you talked about 5 naught. So 4 naught you said is all about technology, and 5 naught you said that there's also human interaction involved in it. So and then you talked about 30% increase in learning if they're using all of these digital tools. So what is the right combination of 4 naught and 5 naught, to teach our students?
Okay, thank you very much. What I believe, Dr. Saiba, that and also research proved that education 5.0 is a balanced approach. This is the actual what we need, and somehow specifically related to us because we are so much influenced from those developed countries. They have very much proper established infrastructure, all the resources and everything. What we need actually, we need to contextualize education 5.0, education 4.0 as per our need or as per the ground realities or resources what we have. So that is very important, and that's why I always emphasize on the contextualized curriculum 5.0, where the educationists, technologists, all other stakeholders, parents, community partners, they all sit together and keeping in mind that the technology is one of the important talk of the day, and we cannot neglect that. But also keeping in mind that what are the ground realities in our educational institutions. So the 5.0 is much more balanced and human-centric approach, and I think we are very happy when we talk about 5.0 because it is also for us that as a teacher, our role is now problem solver, decision maker, creator. So I think this is most. I think maybe some other can also add in that.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to move on to Mr. Kaur. So I'm going to take from Sir Mushtaba, Dr. Mushtaba. He talked about the advanced countries, and he said that we cannot compare our context with theirs. How do you compare the two contexts?
Good question. Good morning, everybody. Um, I think we're living in two different worlds. Here in Pakistan, and we're not talking globally, there are perhaps 10% of schools in Pakistan that we can discuss this with, and some of our teachers will go back tomorrow and can maybe consider and implement. 90% of schools we can't. In 90% of the schools, if we could get the government to have cell phones for the kids to use, and electricity and a stable Wi-Fi, that's the advancement. In 2019, I was invited to Microsoft head office. There was a number of rectors from universities, and they wanted to show us their flagship Microsoft showcase schools from the States. This is 2019. And so we started with a PowerPoint in one of their classrooms, and the PowerPoint was using AI to automatically translate to the language that we wanted it in. So obviously, I was from a Spanish country at that time, so I went for the Spanish translation. But there was people around the world, and they chose different ones. It was translating this PowerPoint live in the language we chose, including the text, so we could see it on our tablets. Phenomenal for that school. That same school, we got taken to a biology lesson. and the kids are around. Remember, this is a showcase school, money's no object. So they have these tables that are interactive tables, not whiteboards, tables that the kids are using. And then the teacher announces to them that they're going to start the dissection. And the children pop on their goggles and they turn around and they're using virtual reality. And the teacher is dissecting the shark. And this shark is in front of us. And it's phenomenal. It's like, wow, this is so impressive. And so that weekend finished, and it was an awesome weekend, and I went back to Bolivia, where we have one computer lab. So what can I do with my kids to bring all this tech? And that's 5 years ago. So goodness knows where these schools are now. What could I do with my kids to bring tech home? And I think I had to take a big stand back and say, okay, what can we use? And so for me as a teacher, the practitioner in the classroom, it was refocusing on using their cell phones as research tools, getting them to use things like the early stages of AI to do research. So I'd set the research task, off they go. The rule was they had to use AI to solve it, and then we'd sit back and look at their results, and then we'd question the AI and critically evaluate it, and question how it managed to come up with conclusions, where did it get the facts, and this was using their phone. So for me as a practitioner, I had to dial down the drive for tech and go back to something slightly more realistic I can use for my kids. There is becoming two worlds, and it'd be lovely for us to be able to use all this technology in all the classrooms. I visited some schools here in Sindh where electricity isn't on all day. So how do we hope or pretend to develop a lot of this technology? I think there's different levels, and if we want the whole of Pakistan to move forward, yes, let's dream, but let's implement on a realistic level, and that might be tablets, and it might be on how we use them in the classroom in our context, not necessarily some of the fancier stuff.
So, of course, we just talked about these two worlds that are there within Pakistan. So, how can these 10% schools who have this technology can help the rest, the 90%?
It's a very, very good question, and I think we have an obligation to do it. One of the great things about traveling around the world is that you establish a global network that doesn't go away, and you understand that education is something we're all passionate about, and it's not competitive between schools. So we have a moral obligation to help each other. So how do we use AI to join forces? It's going to be difficult. Sharing resources springs to mind. That there's nothing wrong with sharing resources. In Chile, we invited some of the children from the Mapuche community, which is a tribe that live up in the hills. They would come down and they would have 2 days in our school. Their 2 days featured heavily the technology that they weren't used to. And then our children would go up to their mountain schools for 2 days, and we would focus on a reconnection with nature. So it's about sharing our resources, perhaps reaching out, joining in on shared adventures. We can have STEM fairs in the schools, but maybe we could share them across things that other schools could join in on those. Sharing resources, but it's not going to be easy if they haven't got the Wi-Fi to connect, or they don't have the number of laptops or computers to be able to join it. So it's perhaps us going out to them a little bit more. But there's a moral obligation for that as well.
Yeah, so what I am hearing from you is that it's like infrastructure is one thing that we are lacking, but digital technology also requires a lot of financial aid, because you need to have these laptops, you need to have cell phones, you need to have some sort of device through which you are going to connect into that internet. So we do talk about online education being not very financially, you know, uh, I'm lost of word. But what I'm trying to say is that we do talk about online education to be very cheap. you're usually talking about that okay, it's an online course, so it's going to be cheap. But the fundamentals that come with that online teaching and learning, that's quite a bit. So what I am assuming right now is that this divide is there to stay, because in the recent future we don't see that our schools, especially those that are in far-fetched area, they're going to have these devices or the internet connection. So just my question to any one of you, yeah. So how do you see this? Like, what do you see? And do you feel, Dr. Mushtaba, that these students who have all of these things are better than the ones who don't?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Silva. I will also further add to Carl's point that you have asked this question about it, how we can uplift this, and what in the context where we are situated, what we are actually doing at Sakkara University, specifically Department of Education, that we have took such initiative on the model of public-private partnership and the partnership model, where we are going to those contexts with our resources, whatever we have. Maybe you heard about the mobile science lab. That was the initiative in Sakhar region and the nearby regions. That those schools, they don't have the highly equipped science labs. So what we did, I think higher education institutions can play a very efficient role if they want to play. Specifically, if they want to do community service to uplift, not just based on the digital things, also from the pedagogical perspective, resources, expertise, administrative leadership expertise, whatever they want to share. So what we have experienced, and it was very fruitful, and we got very good results, that the mobile science lab used to visit those districts, those schools, they don't have proper science labs. And the faculty member from the Department of Education, they lead, and also our science teacher educators and science pre-service teachers, they also support them in terms of teaching in the lab. And the students, they were from the very humble background and from the villages. They really feel amazing, interesting, and engaging activity. So I think technology transfer, technology share, resources share, public-private partnership, these models can be very beneficial if you want to contribute in that.
Thank you so much. Even though there are so many questions that are coming to my mind, and I would like to throw the mic to the audience, but I don't think we have time. So we'll have to wrap it up. Maybe at tea time, you can ask our panelists any questions that you want to. One thing that we took away today is that any digital learning, any digital platform must have some sort of contextualization. We must understand when we are using it, why we are using it, how we are using it, whether we want to use it or not. So this is very important. Secondly, we learned that the presence of teacher is very, very important. You cannot leave your learners with the digital technology and think that now they're going to learn everything. This is not how it's going to happen. Third thing that we learned is that there is a divide, there is a big, huge digital divide in Pakistan and across the world. This is what I'm presuming from our talk today, that it's not only in Pakistan, but it is across the world. And this divide is not really going to go away very soon, but we all as educators need to work towards it. So thank you so much once again, and I think it was a really, really fruitful discussion. I will request you to please stay on the stage. Our esteemed panelists.